All right, we're about to dive into this incredible sequence of events that builds on itself to make a really powerful statement about authority, about what a mission looks like, and about compassion. And it all kicks off with one radical question that honestly challenges everything. So, this is it. This is the question that sets the whole thing in motion. And you got to understand, this isn't just some abstract theological debate. No, this is a direct challenge to the entire religious establishment of the day. It really sets the stage for every single thing that's about to happen. So, how does a question like that even come up in the first place? Well, it all starts with a remarkable act of faith and then a declaration that absolutely no one in the room saw coming. Just try to picture this scene, okay? You've got a group of friends who are so completely convinced that Jesus can help their buddy that they literally carry him on his mat right to where he is. And what's amazing is that the text says Jesus saw their faith, the faith of the friends. It's just this beautiful picture of what community and hope look like in action. Okay, now here's the twist. Everyone in that room is expecting a physical healing, right? That's what they're there for. But Jesus looks past the obvious and goes straight to a deeper spiritual problem. He doesn't say, get up and walk. He says, your sins are forgiven. And that one sentence just completely changes the entire dynamic of the moment.
And right on cue, the conflict erupts. For the teachers of the law who are sitting right there, this is just outrageous. I mean, forgiving sins, that was something only God could do. So in their minds, this man is claiming to be God, and that, to them, is the very definition of blasphemy.
Jesus, knowing exactly what they're thinking, turns to them with this absolutely brilliant question. I mean, think about it for a second. Anybody can say the words, your sins are forgiven. It's an invisible act. There's no way to prove it happened or not. But telling a paralyzed man to get up and walk? Well, that's something else entirely. That's a visible, verifiable miracle. His point is, if he can do the thing you can see, the harder thing, then that proves he has the authority to do the easier thing that you can't see. And this is the mic drop moment. He makes his claim crystal clear. He flat out says he has this authority. And then, to prove it, he turns back to the paralyzed man and says, get up, take your mat, and go home. And the man does. The whole argument is settled, not with more words, but with an undeniable miracle that leaves everyone just stunned.
But this incredible authority isn't just about showing off with dramatic healings. He also uses it to completely flip the social and religious rules on their head, totally redefining who his mission is actually for.
So next he sees a man named Matthew. And Matthew is a tax collector, which meant he was basically seen as a traitor, a sinner working for the Roman occupiers. And Jesus just looks at him and says two words, follow me. That's it. And Matthew, he just gets up and goes. The authority in that simple command is staggering, and the choice of person, deeply, deeply symbolic. And this dinner party that follows just lays the social clash bare for everyone to see. Jesus is hanging out at Matthew's house, and the guest list is full of other tax collectors and people the society had labeled sinners. Now, for the Pharisees, the super respected religious leaders, this was just scandalous. See, sharing a meal wasn't just about food. It was a sign of acceptance, of fellowship, and to them, this was totally unacceptable.
When the Pharisees challenge him on this, Jesus gives them this perfect analogy. He says, look, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, it's the sick. He's basically framing himself as a physician. And what do doctors do? They go to where the sickness is. He's saying, my purpose isn't to hang out with people who already think they're perfect, it's to be with the people who know they're not.
And then he quotes their own scriptures back to them. And in doing so, he gives us his entire mission statement. He says, God desires mercy, not just empty religious rituals. And he makes it plain. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. He's here for the very people the religious establishment had written off. Okay, so you might be wondering, how does this radical new way of thinking fit in with all the old established traditions? Well, Jesus explains with a couple of quick, unforgettable parables that, well, it doesn't. First, he says you'd never sew a brand new, unshrunk piece of cloth onto an old coat. Why? Because the first time you wash it, that new patch will shrink and just rip the old fabric, making the hole even worse. His point is so clear. What he's teaching isn't just a minor patch-up job for the old system. It's something so new and different that it will actually tear those old structures apart. And the second metaphor is even more powerful.
He says you don't pour new fermenting wine into old brittle wineskins. The pressure from the new wine expanding would just cause those old skins to burst, and you'd lose everything, the wine and the wineskin. This new, living, dynamic movement he's starting needs new, flexible structures to contain it. You just can't pour it into the old, rigid, religious boxes. So, after claiming authority over sin and completely upending social norms, the narrative builds to its most dramatic proof of authority yet. Now Jesus comes face to face with the two biggest human boundaries there are: chronic illness and death itself. Now, the way this next part is structured is just fascinating. It's actually a miracle inside of another miracle. Jesus is on his way to the home of a synagogue leader whose daughter has just died, but his journey gets interrupted. This timeline helps us keep the two stories straight as they unfold. On the way, a woman who had been bleeding for 12 long years, a condition that made her a social and religious outcast, reaches out in total desperation. I mean, just let that sink in. 12 years of suffering, 12 years of isolation. Now, she was just hoping to touch his cloak and get healed in secret, but Jesus stops everything. He turns and addresses her directly, and he calls her daughter, giving her back her dignity, and tells her that her own faith is what made her well. And just like that, 12 years of suffering were over in an instant. So then he finally gets to the leader's house, where the professional mourners are already wailing. And when he says, the girl isn't dead, she's only sleeping, they literally laugh at him. They know death when they see it. But he's operating on a whole different level of authority. He just takes her by the hand, and she gets up. So why? Why all of these incredible displays of power? Why forgive sins, call outcasts, raise the dead? The final verses of this chapter reveal the real motivation behind every single thing he does. The miracles just keep coming, one after another. He heals 2 blind men, he makes a man who couldn't speak able to talk, and the reaction from the crowds is just pure amazement. They're saying, we've never seen anything like this. But look at the stark contrast with the Pharisees. They're so set in their opposition that they chalk it all up to the power of demons. And here, right at the end, we get to the heart of it all. This is the why. When Jesus looked out at the crowds, he was filled with compassion. He didn't just see a nameless mob. He saw hurting individuals, people who were confused and lost, and totally without leadership, like sheep without a shepherd. Every single act of authority we've just seen, it was fueled by that deep, profound sense of empathy. And that really brings us to our final question, the big takeaway from all this. This entire story forces us to think about what it looks like when immense power isn't used for control or for selfish gain, but is instead driven entirely by compassion for the helpless and the hurting. It's a question that really echoes beyond these pages, right? It challenges how we think about power and its true purpose in our own world today.